we could just have you talking to the mic there.
Talking to the mic.
All right.
You got your? Is that the we're good there?
Yeah, we'll just be
Is this
talking.
casual?
Yeah, 100,
okay.
absolutely casual. You know.
If I had
Yeah, a nice little beverage. It would be nice.
All right.
Actually, I had meant to get you a bottle of something. Because when I did, I guess a closing interview with Garth, and this was like just as like COVID was hitting when we were there, and I had known that Garth loves rum, and so I went and bought him a nice.
Know that?
Oh, I've heard some stories. I've
They weren't for me.
no,
I did not break that seal. I'm telling you flat out right now. I don't think you're inaccurate, but I did not break that seal.
No, that was. Let's just blame that one on refs.
Okay.
Because that's a common denominator.
Yeah.
It still reminds me of one year World League, or maybe it was Calgary. I can't remember, but a bunch of it was. Maybe it was Calgary 2015, actually, and Canada had been playing Cuba. National championships were there, so we had all gone out afterwards. And both you and Terry made the exact same comment to Cam and I that night because we were all at the bar. And you both basically made the same comment. It's like, oh, God, I love the nights where we just get the entire volleyball community together. And then you looked at me and you were like, the nights that no one ever hears about. So yeah,
the best stories are still untold.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely. All right. You good to go?
Good to go.
All right. What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Today we have a very special guest. I've come out all the way here to Hamilton. We're in the depths of the Ron Joyce Stadium at McMaster University to talk to the one, the only, one of the greatest of all time, not only when it comes to Canadian volleyball, U Sports volleyball, but definitely OUA volleyball, Mr. Dave Preston. Dave, thank you very much for having me. I'm very excited to chat with you today. It's been a long ride, not only for yourself, but I feel like I've gotten to know you a little while, for a while now, back since the days in 2008, where I sent you an email hoping to get recruited by you. And I mean, the only two schools that recruited me were McGill and RMC at the time. So I think that should tell you about where.
Come on.
No, actually, seriously, those are the only two schools that recruited me, and I think that should give you a kind of an idea of where I was at. You recruited a couple of my teammates, Jarmantha, Chris back in the day.
Yeah,
And
those were some amazing young men. So
yes,
I'll lump you into that group too, though.
For different reasons. Yeah,
absolutely. We all have our strengths to leverage.
Yeah. Well, Coach, it was announced a little bit earlier that this will be your final season here at McMaster. Such a storied run. You've brought this team to unparalleled heights. You've raised the level of not only the OUA, but also Canadian volleyball as a whole. So today I just wanted to kind of chat about that. We're gearing up for what is it feels like the infinity times that you've been in the OUA championships. You're gearing up to play Windsor on the weekend and go for the Forsyth Cup. And then you guys will be hosting the national championships next week, which I love. I love it when McMaster hosts nationals. There's something special about the Burridge. It gets rocking.
Yeah, it does.
You guys, it gets loud in
It does.
here. Some of my favorite volleyball moments in terms of covering the sport have come in this gym at national championships. So I'm excited to be a part of about it. But I think that it's going to be a bit of a bittersweet moment for a lot of people, especially yourself. How do you sum up all of the years that you've done here at McMaster? How do you
Oh, what a great question. First off, thanks for the high praise coming from you. That means a lot. I think I stand on the shoulders of the giants who came before me. I'll take the accolades that you suggest, but the truth of the matter is that I think there is a lot more to it than perhaps a lot of people know. But I'm looking forward to it. I think the first word when you were describing it was joy. I think that's what I'll feel is joy. You know, yeah, we've been to the show a couple times. We've yet to win one. You don't get to pick your own ending. That it's sport. It comes with it. But I'm really proud of the way that a lot of our guys have learned how to be champions, and maybe that success hasn't always showed up in a gold medal around their neck from the stuff on the court, but the people that they become off the court, the successes they've had in different arenas, the connections that we still have with the alumni that you mentioned previously and some other guys. I think those are the real takeaways out of all this, and watching people succeed. So I would say the first thing will be joy. I'll always look back on my time at McMaster fondly. The people that I've had the opportunity to work with, the athletes I've had the opportunity to train and be a part of so many great people's lives. It's been phenomenal.
Could you have imagined when was your first year at McMaster?
2002.
2002. So it's been 20 plus years. This is your 21st year.
Yeah.
Could you have imagined that, like, being in this scenario, being in this setting, having worked with? Yeah.
That's why I came here.
Oh, okay.
And it wasn't completely my vision. Trez Quigley, the athletic director who hired me, we shared that vision. We wanted to put McMaster men's volleyball on a national stage. And yeah, thank you. And but again, I didn't do it alone. That's what I mean. Like, the foundations that I was able to lay in my early years here were because of the leadership that was provided by her and our staff, and so, you know, the support has been tremendous. So, you know, when I say I stand on the shoulders of the giants who came before me, I truly mean it. I wouldn't have been able to do a lot of what we do here if it weren't for the people who I was able to do it with. So yeah, I appreciate what respect is given, but the reality of it is I know that it wasn't done alone. So I had a little bit to do with it, and I'm glad for that. But like the athletes who poured it out, the blood, the sweat, the tears, that was what I'll remember the most. That joy. So yeah, I did envision it coming in. I thought I could actually do it quicker.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I thought we might be able to win a championship in like 4 years ish and see what we could do. It took us 6, but I thought I was a little over aggressive, and then once we broke that seal, it kind of rolled from there, and I think, you know, if we're able to break the national seal this year, I think, you know, once you learn how to do it, it becomes easier. I know you can ask Brock at Alberta and no longer Ben at Trinity, but once you know how to do it and the guys understand that legacy is a little easier to do. So it's been a little difficult for us to break that national seal, but I think once you do, it becomes perpetual.
It's funny that you say that this was the goal, because when you look at it, like looking at it from the outside, it does seem that McMaster puts a lot of importance and puts a lot behind men's volleyball, which isn't generally the case. You know, in North America, especially, you know, we know the realities of the NCAA. When you go on the OUA website, it's kind of viewed as like not a second tier sport, but it's underneath football, basketball, and hockey. But it's always seemed that McMaster has always treated men's volleyball and volleyball in general with such high regard.
Yeah, I think, again, stemming back to 21 years ago, that was Trez's vision, right? She played for our national women's volleyball team, and I know Tim Lukes has done an outstanding job with our women's team here, and so, you know, that was always a steady. But at the time before I got here, the men's volleyball program was in a little bit of a down cycle, and that didn't sit well with her. And I remember the initial conversations that we had, and she's like, I want to put this in national prominence. And I said, we can do this. I said, you know, it's not going to be easy, but we can do this. All the foundations are here. And so, yeah, you know, that was the vision. We wanted to just that, and then it's I've been fortunate that the legacy that players have left has continued on with the guys that are even currently here.
Yeah, I mean, I think you guys have not only put it on the national scale, but it's truly international now, right? Like in my view, and with our following, it's quite international, especially with a few of the platforms that we work on, and people are aware. And then in the same breath as the Trinity Westerns and the Albertas, like people are aware of McMaster volleyball and the athletes that come out of those programs. I mean, if we look at like what Stephen Marr has done, no one else has gone from playing youth sports to being a top 10 scorer in the Italian league, and it continues to do so, and he's having his best season yet. So it's truly put you and everyone involved in this program has truly put McMaster and men's volleyball in Canada in general, and not only at a national scale, but an international scale.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that because Stephen just had a great win over Modena yesterday.
Yeah, it was a little sketchy. At
probably
times.
could have taken that in 3, but
should have probably.
He decided to
taken
give the
3,
fans the money's worth and drag it to 5. But yeah, just those are the types of relationships that I think I really value, and Danny Demonienko getting married this summer, and getting invited to the wedding and stuff. You're just like, man, those are the cool moments for me. I can't tell you what the scores were in those matches or any of that, but those relationships are really cool, and watching them succeed. Those guys, particular, and others, Jory still playing in Bundesliga, right? So those are cool from a sport perspective, but just a human perspective. The other guys and what they're doing, and Brandon Copper's being a dad now, and those kind of things, and him sending pictures of him and the baby to me and stuff, and those are cool moments. Everett, I'm not gonna lie, I don't know if I envisioned that 21 years ago.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think as a young coach, I was like, okay, we're going to win this, and I need a serving machine, and I need this, and then you realize you're like, man, this is a lot more about people than it is about products, and then you get the right people here, and that's kind of been some of the lessons along the way.
Yeah, that's as you name them, and I mean I know so many of them, and I know of them, but it's like Matt Passland has been having a great year, and in Sweden, and it just kind of goes on, and it's you're right though. You don't really you don't think about all those intangible things as what makes it so special. And
just a guy like Pete Koikevich, who's working now for he's in the medical field, and a guy like Dan Smedley, who's the CFO of AstraZeneca, and they don't play volleyball anymore, but the quality of human beings and the things they're doing to change the world are just it's absolutely incredible. Matusz Ledarski right now, he's working with our faculty of biomedical engineering, I believe, and they just had something published about trying to find out what the next pandemic is going to be and trying to solve. I'm like, that is just so unreal to me. And those things I didn't expect, but the level of success that these guys can have when they figure out what it takes to be successful.
How do you help them balance that between the success on the court and the success off the court? Because it's clear that McMaster is a very it takes a lot to come here.
Yeah.
It's a very strenuous academic facility.
Very true.
You don't just let anyone in.
Nope.
Let's just say that there's not really any slogans about McMaster in that way as some other schools do. So how do you balance that with the success on the court and everything that requires to be a top 3 program in the country now for a decade plus, and you're also producing top level human beings who are having the impact on the world outside of the volleyball court?
Yeah, I think it comes down to 2 things. One, I think each individual case is its own entity, right? So we have to treat everybody, in the manner in which they need. So I think sometimes, when you talk about fairness and equity, and in my opinion, that doesn't necessarily mean that everybody gets the same thing, but that everybody gets what they need. So some guys, if you looked at our practice schedule, save for reading week, there isn't a week that goes by that somebody doesn't miss a training session. So that's just the academic reality at McMaster, is that they're going to miss a practice, or they're going to be late, or and so you have to accommodate for that. Okay, well, what do? Well, you have to basically beef up your roster, right? We need other people here. So our roster is probably a little bit bigger than it should be. But that's what we need to deal with the circumstances that we need to be successful here at McMaster. So I think dealing it on an individual level is probably one of the most important things. And then I think after that, it just comes down to principles. And the 4 principles that we live off of here are honesty, integrity, respect, and excellence. And excellence isn't a sometimes thing. You can't say, oh, I'm going to be an excellent athlete, but I'm going to kick away my school. That's not how excellence works. Now, excellence doesn't necessarily need to be defined as being an academic All-Canadian, right? Some people's excellence are, as a student, I'll tell you this flat out. I wasn't a summa cum laude. Or,
Me neither, trust me.
I was C's get degrees, right? So I have tremendous respect for the people who can do that, but I also have a tremendous understanding that excellence is, for some guys, just making sure that they can get their degree, and that is their reality. So I think trying to hold everybody to a standard is a mistake. I think holding everybody to their standard is the right thing to do here. So
when you talk about having a larger roster than the typical, and I've noticed that in the past, and like one guy who comes to mind is Seer Karimi.
Yeah.
Who I remember coaching against him in club, and he was kind of a coming off the bench guy in club, and I don't think Seer ever had the idea of, and it's not something I've ever discussed with him, but I don't think he ever had the idea of coming in and being a starter or anything like that. But yet it seemed just from the outside that he was someone that always had an impact on the program.
Huge.
Do you when you're looking at bringing people in the program, whether it's through recruiting or walk-ons or whatever it may be, are you looking to fill holes not only on the court but within the squad more so like as like an organization than just as like preferably like primarily like a team that plays?
Yeah, I think that's situational too, Everett. I think there's sometimes you're just like, look, we need an outside hitter. We got to, like, who's the best passer in the country? We have to go find this person. And then there's other points where you're just like, you know what, that person has tremendous character. I don't know where they're going to fit, but I know they're going to fit. They're going to fit in the team room, and they're going to make your team room better, and they're going to make your meetings better, and they're going to make your communication better. And so I think that there's situations when you're recruiting that it's really important that, you get, in my opinion, you get the character first, right? Because you said it yourself, this place isn't for everybody. Like, there's a certain level of understanding academically and athletically of what we want to do here. And it some people just can't or don't want to handle that. So I think we need to do our homework on the front end of that and make sure we get the right people. And then there's other people where you're like, you know what? Like Seer, I don't know if you're ever going to play at whatever level, but he's got championship character. And we knew that. His recruiting story was very well known. He came up to me in camp and walked up and said, I'm going to play for you one day. And I said, that's awesome. And he, as he was walking back underneath the net away from me at camp, I'm
without having to duck.
Yeah. I'm like, okay, I'd love to see that. And then he came at a high school game again when he was playing for Rick Hansen and said, Coach, I just want you to know I wasn't kidding. I'm working on the marks to get there. And I said, you get the marks to get into MAC, you got a spot in our team. And in his grade 12 year, he showed up in my office, took the bus in from Mississauga, showed up in my office, slid a transcript across the table and said, I got the marks to get in. And I slid it right back to him and said, you got a locker in our room. And it was a pretty cool moment. So little things like that, though, again, great stories and great people.
Yeah. And it's especially like for this age of individual, right? Yeah. Like, it's so important to have that experience and that cohesive family.
Yeah.
And that's one thing I've always noticed is that there's, I do think that every team to a certain extent is a family, and you have to be, right? Yeah. Whether, sometimes it works, sometimes it's a little dysfunctional, but it's always seemed to me, especially from the amount of alumni that come back.
Yeah.
and everything like that. You know, you come to matches here, and there's always people who are up in the beer gardens, and you know they're sharing stories. But it does seem that like the quality of the family that you've created here is one of the leading factors of what's led to all the success on the court as well.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that. In fact, two of our biggest supporters who I just had a word with before Saturday's match said the same thing. They said it appears from the outside that all your players are just great gentlemen, and that means a lot to me. I don't know. Obviously, winning championships is really important, but if we had to reverse those things, I'm not sure I would give that up. I think we can do both, but I'm really glad that people see it that way, because it's been, out of respect for the people who came before us. That's how we want to honor that. We want to leave it a little bit better than we found it. So, those characteristics that are observed mean a lot to me.
How much is that? The people that are around you, not only the players, but also the staff that you have around you. If you look at, I think about some of the coaches that you've worked with over the years. And if you look at your bench now, you've got Steve Brinkman, former national team player. I'm not going to say anything about Ian because we don't need to get his ego to be any bigger as it is. Pete Iglesias, who's been there. How important is it for you to have a staff around you that you and you respect and you trust, and that can challenge you in some ways? Yeah,
I think that your last point is probably the best one. Steve Brinkman lives in London. He travels in from London for training and for matches. So for him to continue to want to be involved and to contribute the way he has, I think is awesome. But he's also a guy who's going to tell me, like, look, this ain't working. Like, this you got to take care of this, or we got to take care of it. Not necessarily my responsibility, but ours. And just his unique perspective on it, of seeing it from a player of 17 years on the national team and having done everything that all these guys, or most of these guys, aspire to do, just gives a little bit additional credibility in the gym. And many people don't know it about Pete Iglesias, but he was one of the most talented setters ever in Canada. Like, he was incredible in the his youth ages and into university. Like, I as a player and as a friend, I used to watch him and marvel at what he could do with a volleyball and the sets that he could make. And so his ability and to see the game again in that light is tremendous. But yeah, let's go back. James Bradley, who was my first assistant coach here, and then went on to do some pretty cool things at Mohawk, and Dave McMaster and Mike Russell and Drew Donaldson, and like, it's just, I could go on and on. Steve Pavelchuk, they're just some really good quality people who wanted to find a way to contribute here, and it's been pretty cool. So yeah, I'm going to leave the position at the end of the year, but those relationships I get to take with me. That's a pretty cool thing. So yeah, and then obviously you mentioned Ian, and we've been trying to do some neat things for the last couple of years here when we decided to team up. So yeah, COVID threw a little bit of a wrench into that for us, but we're going to get it one more shot this year.
Yeah, I mean, we don't really need to get into the whole COVID thing, because I mean, we were both, when everything shut down, we were both in Winnipeg. I remember Brinks was the first one to actually lean over and tell me, because he's just like, no one knows this yet, but they just canceled the tournament. And I was just like, oh man. And just, you could just see it as Garth was giving his final speech, and that was killer. It put such a wrench in so much that so many people have been building for years.
And it happened so fast. I remember that day that it was, right, it started with the NHL shutting down, and then they shut the NBA down. And by the end of the day, we went from that morning, sorry, I don't want to digress here, but we went from that morning doing our pass serve. We're like, okay, guys, wash all your hands, because that's the message. And we went to our pass serve, and by the end of that day, we were on a plane home. It happened that fast.
Oh, I was like, I woke up that morning and I flew into Winnipeg that day. Mm-hmm. I remember calling people, and they're like, yeah, no, it's still happening. Don't worry. And then at a certain point, they're like, okay, we're not letting fans in.
Yeah.
And then so I was like messaging people, being like, hey, can I still come in as a media? Like, I'll do interviews with gloves and a mask on. I don't really care. and it just moves so quickly.
It was so fast.
So
I felt so bad for those young men, especially the graduating seniors.
Yeah.
But I'm glad that's behind us.
Yeah, thank goodness. And now we get to have a proper national championships, because even last year, there wasn't fans at that, so it's nice to be able to have a proper
There'll be a couple fans in the Burridge.
Yeah, I think there'll be one or two. I think especially that Friday night game might be a little.
We had 1,200-1,300 in there for this OUA semifinal on Saturday.
Really?
So yeah, it was pretty packed.
Oh, that's awesome. And as I said, the Burridge is it's a as an opposing player, and not a player, but a coach. I've talked to other coaches, and they all say that it's such a tough place to play. And I mean, you guys have beaten Ohio State here, you've beaten Long Beach here, you've had won how many OUA championships in a row, 6, if I
maybe
something like that. It's
don't really count that stuff.
Yeah, that's
somebody does, not me.
Yeah, it's always just about the next year and
the next point.
Then exactly the next point. But I've there's been times here where, even wearing headphones on the broadcast, you kind of have to yell to each other because you can't hear if you're up at the top, and it's really hot. And
I think the loudest I've ever heard it was that Montreal match in the first round. What was that, 2018? Yeah, 2018. And I remember in a timeout, were we down 2-0?
Yeah.
I know it went
to 5. I remember that.
Yeah. I can't remember the details. That shows you where my head's at. But the reality is I do remember being in a timeout and trying to get a couple things across to some guys. And they're like, I can't hear you. Mm-hmm. And we're this close. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, I'll write it on the board. And so it was at that moment where I knew I had to have that clipboard, and we weren't just talking about it. I had to have it. And so I had to write it on the board and tap the guys and show them, and tap the guy and show them, because you could not hear yourself in the timeout.
It was that match, and then also, I don't want to bring up a bad memory, but the first set of the national final in 2016 against Trinity.
Yeah.
That was incredible. Yeah. So yeah, it was something else. No,
it's been a really good place to play.
Yeah, it's and it's we got one more go at it, both with this weekend against Windsor. Yeah. Real quick though, I don't think you guys have ever played Windsor
this year.
No, not at all, eh?
Not this year. We haven't played them all.
The
schedule maker missed that one on there, but
yeah, that's been an interesting discussion within the OUA this year. That strength of schedule through it all, but I'm expecting that to be a good one. And
we were in the quarterfinal last year, and it went 5.
Yeah.
Right. So I was. We're well aware of how well they're coached, and the kind of level that they can play.
Well, that's Windsor's a team that has built themselves up so well over the past number of years.
No, James Gravel's unbelievable. I had a chance to work with him in Fischus in 19 with him and Grant Wilson from Brandon, and working with those two is one of the highlights of my career. Wow. They're really, really good coaches.
Yeah, but you. In a way, you've created that environment to create that growth from other coaches, right? Your excellence has created that environment that
I'm not sure I agree 100%.
That's what I'm going to say here, because
I think they had a lot to do with it themselves, and I think the quality of volleyball in OUA has gone up for sure. I think the record speaks for itself. I think it still has a long way to go. Mm-hmm. I think the equality of full scholarships should and needs to play a big part of that. I'm not sure everybody understands that the playing field's just not equal. Mm-hmm. The talent drain out of Ontario, both men's and more importantly, probably women's into the NCAA. If the powers that be that could ever come to the realization to offer a full scholarship, and not that money is the biggest component to success, but the value that those kids derive from a full scholarship is pretty important, and I know the parents are of that mindset as well. So I do think that the level has definitely gone up. I think we have great coaches in the OUA. The league play is getting tougher. You've got to show up every week, and sometimes maybe in the past that wasn't the case, but that's no longer the case now.
Yeah, I mean, talking about being able to give a full scholarship. When you look at, like, to me, men's volleyball in Canada and youth sports might be the best product we have, right? When you look at,
it's arguable for sure, yeah.
well, when you look at how much impact youth sports volleyball has on the national team
100%.
at the Olympic level. Like,
Yep.
when you look at 2021, you look at 2016,
Yep.
like 2021, there's one athlete on that team who didn't go to a youth sports program, and that's Shawan, who just went straight to the national team.
Yep.
Every single other athlete.
Nick Hogue.
And Nick Hogue.
Yeah.
But even then, he played a year in the CCAA
Yep.
for Sherbrooke,
Yep.
right? So every other athlete, like, I don't
They
think
came
there's-
through that system for sure.
yeah. There's no other sport for within the Canadian Olympic Committee that can look at their athletes and be like, these athletes are 100% like born and bred, like they're grown here in Canada, and they're grown within that. As great as U Sport basketball has gotten, if they get to happen to qualify for Paris, that's going to be all NCAA guys.
Yeah.
The Scrub brothers aren't going to be making that team. So if we had the ability to, keep those players in Canada on the women's side, but especially on the men's side too. We've got Justin Louis who's down, and I mean, he did go to Stanford, so that's a different.
But there's a classic example. I don't want to take anything away from Stanford academically, but there's another classic example of a talent drain for a young man who could have had an opportunity to stay here if they were able to perhaps offer him what Stanford did. So we don't need to get into the finances of all that, but I do think that the scholarship situation in Ontario will definitely influence that moving forward if it ever gets leveraged that way.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Daniil Hrstanovic, who's one of the top talents coming out of Ontario this year, he'll be down at Long Beach next year. So, I mean, if that link between those two schools happen, we'll be seeing him at the Burridge, just in a different jersey. So that's
and I think it's even probably more prominent on the women's side, and has been for a long time.
Yeah.
Right. So, but yeah, those are some of the parts of the conversation. But I do think that OUA volleyball is definitely, a big thing for me is leaving things better than I found it. And I think when I came into the league, I think the quality of the product right now is better than I found it. At least I can say that for McMaster volleyball. There is a sense of pride when you're coaching in that gym and you see all the people there and you see the level that we're playing at, and I'm like, that's pretty cool. This is what I envisioned. I always aspired to run a program that I would have loved to play for as an athlete. You know what I mean? Like, if you're going to do something you love, you might as well do it in front of the people who love you, right? And so to be able to play in front of those fans and that crowd and that environment, and so I've always tried to design the program of, as an athlete, I would have loved to have played in that environment.
Yeah, and once again, Burridge is something
it's cool,
else.
Eh?
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
It is cool.
DJ Jukebox,
man,
he gets that thing pumped up.
I miss when he was up on the back wall there,
that was
in
cool.
his little box.
Yeah,
it just like I remember, maybe it was 2016, maybe even before that, at OUA championships and stuff like that, just sitting there in the crowd and just as warm-ups are happening and guys are bouncing balls and
his equipment's taking a beating. That's why he had to move up.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. I think his equipment got smashed way too many times. He's like, man, I can't afford to do this anymore. So they got him out of the splash zone and up into the bird's nest up there. But his impact is as great as ever. So that's one of the really cool things.
I remember when he got moved upstairs, like Andrew Richards. It was during his time, and he's like, man, it's just so weird. It's so weird not having him there. And on one side, I mean, he's still here. He's just upstairs.
Yeah.
He's just a floor.
I just have to look a little harder to find him.
Yeah.
When he throws that country music song on and points down at me, I'm like, hey.
Is that like your walk-up song? Yeah. What's your go-to? Like,
I got a couple. Probably, if we're going like straight old school, it's probably like John Denver Country Roads.
Okay. Oh, classic.
But the old Jason Aldean, that kind of stuff. And
it's funny that you say that, because whenever I think of you off the court, I think about you at Madawaska.
Oh, yeah.
And you're like just a gray McMaster volleyball t-shirt with that beat up straw hat you always wear. I always say that there's two Daves that I know. There's the Dave on the court during championship time where, sometimes I walk in, it's just a curt little nod, and it's just like, yep, okay, he's in game mode. And then there's Madawaska Dave in the summertime where, you were happy to talk to every kid and discuss volleyball. And,
I could do this for hours, man.
Yeah.
Like just chatting and stuff. And you're absolutely right. I think there's probably more than 2 days if you ask my family.
depending on if you've
and
won or lost.
And it's ironic enough. I'm not going to get into detail, but there's a couple personality studies out there, and I was equal across the board in all 4 components, and they see that as a perceived strength, and it can be, but it's also a challenge for people who have to deal with me because they don't know which Dave they're going to get, right? Because you're right. I could be in game mode and I'm right on it, and then I'm in social mode and I'm right on it. And so, it's a little challenging because for me, I know where I'm at, but not everybody else does. So I know I'm not an easy guy to deal with. I get that. There's 3 young ladies in my house, my wife being one of them, who get that even more than I do. But they've made me realize that. But I do think it is a pretty decent strength for me that I can be functional or successful in a variety of different scenarios. But I do know that it's not the first time that it's been pointed out to me of like, man, you're not that guy that was just here a couple hours ago, and I get that. So
is that ever come up with new recruits? They come in the summertime.
All the time.
They see you.
Like, this ain't recruiting Dave anymore.
And then once the season gets into play, like, oh wow, I wasn't expecting this.
We just took this up a notch. I think and I think some of the younger guys or some of the newer guys or even guys who don't know me as much, it's they get a little taken aback by it on occasion. But I think the more time you spend around me, I think you kind of understand a little bit better I think it always comes from a decent place. It's just sometimes I get a little competitive, and that can be a good thing when you're trying to win championships. But I think there's points where you also have to humanize that, right, and understand who you're dealing with.
Now, you mentioned your family. How important for you has been that you've been able to share it with your family?
Yeah.
I don't remember ever a time when I've come to a McMaster game and I haven't seen your wife and daughters in the crowd. And I've seen them come in before a game, and they all come and give you a hug and a kiss, and they wish you the best of luck, and they're always the first ones there after a match too. So how important is that to be able to share that with your closest family around you?
It's not important. It is the important. Like it is they're my why, right? Like my family is my why, and this is my career, but I do this because of my family, and so for that, like, it's immeasurable. The hug kiss thing was kind of funny because it didn't even start with me. There was a football player here. His name was Jesse Lumsden. He was pretty good.
That's a name people know, eh?
Yeah. He's all right. And has gone on to his, Olympic bobsled career, and now really successful in the business arena. And it started with my oldest daughter, Grace. Jesse would, the old stadium here, we would find our way back underneath the stands just outside of their team room. And Grace was his good luck charm.
Really?
And so he would make sure that he was the last one out of the team room, and then lift up his helmet on his way out to the field, and Grace would give him a little kiss just on the cheek, and then he would put his helmet down. And I think perhaps maybe it gave him perspective as a young student athlete, or I don't know what the connection was, but my wife was a physiotherapist at the time and treated some of the football guys, and that's kind of where it fostered it from. And then that kind of good luck scenario just kind of carried on, and then it carried on with me as a coach, and it was kind of cool. So I would love to take ownership and credit for that, but the truth of the matter is it was Jesse who kind of started that.
It's always those football guys.
Yeah, but you know what? It was just a really cool memory, and at the time that was just like, that's the kind of environment that McMaster is. Like, you're just like, okay, that's how it rolls here. Yeah. Greg Marshall was a coach at the time, and so it was pretty cool. So, and then it has been a pretty important thing to me that I've been able to share this with my family. As I say, they're my why. So they're so involved into the fabric of what I do. I can't imagine it any other way.
Yeah. Wow. It's that family feels it just permeates the walls here.
Yeah. Yeah. It's cool.
That's really special.
I'll miss that for sure. Right. But again, I get to carry those relationships out with us. Like even when Jesse was in the Olympics, we had his bracelets and sent him a couple pictures when he was overseas. Just hey, we're thinking about you, brother, and kind of stuff. So it has carried over.
That's special. Now, before we look at like kind of what's to come, was it a tough decision to decide to move on from McMaster? Was that something that you deliberated with for a while? Or?
No, they were separate decisions. It wasn't one decision. So when the Australia opportunity came up, I thought we were going to be able to do it part-time.
Yeah.
And it, I think realistically looking at what's ahead, part-time isn't going to do that. You don't become an Olympian in a part-time fashion. So looking back at it, yeah, there's, some changes that need to be made, but I think this year, my intention even into January was to stay. I really.
So it's been that recent.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and because we were recruiting. Ian and I were recruiting for this next coming season, and we got asked a number of times because of the previous Australia connection of well, what's your plan? Are you going to be there? And with a very sincere heart, my answer was always, this is where I want to be. And then, January, I turned 55 in November, and I got some information about pensions and all that kind of stuff. And that was in the back of my mind. And then I was just like, you know what? It's time. It's time for me to turn a page. And so that happened in mid-January. And then the Australia full-time thing got taken care of after that. So,
okay.
So they were separate decisions. It wasn't I'll go there and leave here. It was no, I'm done here, and then Australia was made after that. So
was that without talking about Australia, was that to kind of take that next step and further your career?
That's always been in the back of my mind.
Yeah.
Even when I got here in 2002, I was still working with Team Canada.
Yeah.
So that story is about my oldest daughter as well. So I was with Team Canada 97 to 2004 and got hired here in 2002. So Western and Mac bridged that gap collegiately. So in 2004 at the Olympic qualifications in Japan, we lost, and that story's well known as well. And I was pretty devastated with having put 7 years of work into that national team program and come up short on 2 Olympic berths. And so all I could think about coming home and seeing my daughter, who was less than a year old. And when I got back to the Toronto airport, she played strange with me. She didn't know who I was.
Oh, no.
And I pretty much wrote my resignation letter to Team Canada in a truck on the way home and just said, look, somebody else can do that job, but nobody else is going to raise my child. And so that was the deciding factor of me stepping down in 2004 after that cycle. I stayed involved a little bit. 11 and 12, I coached the junior team. And then I was going to get, and that, same thing happened. I was in Turkey in August at World Championships, and I was singing Happy Birthday to my kids on Skype. I'm like, what am I doing? I said I wasn't going to do this, and now here I am again. And so, and then when the Australian thing came up, it's always kind of been in the back of my mind that Olympic dream has been permeating. And when this opportunity came up, my youngest at the time, who was only 16, said, Dad, you've been talking about this your whole life. You're running out of chances. You may want to jump at this one. And so we had a serious sit down with the family and said, look, if I'm going to do this, there's going to be some change. Like, I'm going to be away a lot more. And they're like, yeah, we get it. We're good. We're not 6 anymore. So it was really my youngest who kind of convinced me to go do this. And obviously with the blessing of my wife and my family, I was able to kind of pursue that opportunity.
Wow, that's crazy that you just decided to step away. Not crazy, it makes perfect sense, but
Yeah.
that's a long journey from then till now.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, 20 years because I was coaching Team Canada my first year here. I had to go back and forth because we were still trying to qualify for 2004 Olympics, and so I was away a bit, and Trez made accommodations to make sure that things could run when I wasn't here, and it was a good working environment. We had things right, and I was still trying to lay the foundations here, and so we thought we might be able to do something similar, but it just wasn't in the cards, and we'll turn the page.
Now, we're turning the page now. Last year was your first year with Australia, and obviously it was clearly a bit of a tough go. Just the roster not quite there yet. Unfortunately, you guys got relegated out of the VNL, which is not an easy go. But now, you have that ability to know that you're the full-time guy and that it's you going to be pushing forward. Is it similar to what you've built here? In some ways, are you able to take how you've built this program and move it to the national team setting in Australia?
Yeah, I think foundationally, Everett, I think you're bang on there. That's, I think, part of the reason why we thought that it might be a fit for me there, is that I know we can build something pretty cool. And they've got tremendous history in volleyball, like the number of athletes and the importance of sport in that country is unreal. So I'm honored to be involved in that. And then again, I'd stand on the shoulders of the giants that came before me. The level of coaching that has gone through that program. There's some really, really good foundation there. Mark Lebedew, Roberto Santilli, we could go on and on. It's Stelio DeRocco, we can go back as far as we want. But the reality of it is, my job is twofold right now. It's looking at a 10-year scope, or now 9, but when I got hired, a 10-year scope leading to the 2032 Olympics in Brisbane, and laying the foundations for that program, as well as deal with the current roster and trying to make sure that our world ranking is high enough that we can qualify and play the level of matches that leaves legacy for the young men who are going to be on that roster in 32. So at some point, those are going to join, and those visions will come together. But right now, they're really separate things. And so my experience here of laying foundations and working with that young group, and because I'm really focusing on, kind of 16 to 18, 19-year-olds right now who will be 26 to 29 in 32, right? So it's dealing with this level of athlete as well as the current Luke Perry's and Arash's and those guys to say, okay, we need to be really good, or as good as we can be now, and still focus on the development component. And so it's a twofold project. Really, really love it. The people are amazing. The work ethic is unreal. The facilities are awesome. It's just really exciting to walk into that environment. And we got a lot of work in front of us. The story is known. We got relegated, but I don't think that's going to be the way forward for us. It's just what we're dealing with right now, and we're going to make it better.
Oh, so I didn't realize that it's a 10-year thing where you're looking at.
So my contract currently will go to the end of LA to 28, and then we'll reassess things. Hey, if I haven't done my job by then it's time to bring somebody else in. But I think the plan moving forward right now is this is a 5-year deal, and let's make sure that we get this right to make sure that by LA we're on track. Yeah. Or not by LA. By LA it'll be the cornerstone or the milestone of that we're on track.
And it's Australia, obviously there's so many similarities with Canada in terms of culturally, and they, especially within volleyball, they don't have a professional league like we do here. I'm not quite sure of what their development system is. I know on Discord we've got a few Aussies who kind of let us know, but there's a lot of similarities, and they definitely. They went to, what was it, 2012? They went to the Olympics.
I believe that was it. Yeah.
They qualified for London.
In London, yeah.
They've had some fantastic players come out of that program. Quite a few of them who have competed here in youth sports as well too. Paul Sanderson, and others. James Weir, who's still currently on the national team. You know, you talk about Grant Wilson, and he a product.
He's a Bobcat.
A good old Bobcat boy. But you know, who's that kid? The 18-year-old who was on the roster this year.
I believe you're talking about Lorenzo Pope.
Yeah,
but he's not 18. But
no, okay.
Yeah,
he's kind of one of that next up and coming guy.
He's a man.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Lorenzo's a man. So he's at Modena right now. And he's been battling some injury in our VCC match against Korea. He experienced an injury. Him and another player collided, and so he's kind of been nursing through that, maybe a little bit more time than we thought. But Lorenzo's he's fun to watch play, man. He's an up and comer for sure.
And Arash has been having a pretty good season. He just recently went to Bielsko-Biala. Playing with Dalton Sinoski out there. And he's really helped them push and to not get relegated out in Poland. So
I'm not sure where that one's going to land, but I know Rash will do everything he can to try and reverse that.
He's definitely had like an impact watching some of their games. Like they're competitive now.
Yeah, they took a set off at Gdansk a couple days ago.
But it's a big chasm that they have to catch up to. I think it's Radom who's in front of them. But you know, when you look at that, you know, the AVC, the Asian continent, like it's a tough area to play in. With, you know, Korea and Japan and Iran and China. India recently beat Japan and qualified for a junior world championship, and they're hosting the club world championships next year. You know, they got 1 billion people in that country, and if they start getting on to volleyball, that might get...
That Prime League is going right now too, right?
Oh, so, just finished this past, and I love it. I personally love it. And everything that they're putting up behind it. Is that something that you're aware of and where?
Yeah, very evident of the level of competitiveness within the conference, and one of the challenges for Australia is that we're so removed from it, right? Like we're fair flight from our closest competitor, so we're going to have to look at how we do things, right, and where we train so we can get some matches, and we all that stuff has to go on the table, but it all requires resources. So we have to make sure that what the plan is. You can put it all on paper, but how do you finance it all, and then how do you move it forward? And so we're looking at all those things right now. But it's good because you go to the Asian Championships or the Asian Cup or this year the Asian Challenger, and you got to bring your A game. And so it's going to be important. And now with the way the world rankings are structured, every match is it's consequential, right? So if you're playing an event that there's ranking points on the line, everything is consequential. And so if they're going to this year with Olympic qualifications being solely based on ranking points, that's changed the game, right? So it's you don't just have to win your conference. Every match is of consequence, and we lived that in VNL last year, right? So
it's I'm not sure how I feel about I like the idea that putting importance on every single match, but I mean, if you look at Cuba, for example, they beat up on Puerto Rico and Mexico in our B team in Qatar last summer, and yet climbed the rankings, whereas we had to play VNL, and I think
we're going to need another show to debate that.
Yeah,
I'm not sure we're going to be able to get all that in here, but the reality of it is, you got to play the game until you're in a position to change the rules of it. And so this is the way it works, and we got to deal with it. Yeah. So, we can sit here and debate it, but my reality is we got to win matches, because that's the only way we improve our world ranking to qualify for world championships and then consequently qualify for Olympics. So it's just, you can debate the merits of it and how it works and whether the formula is right, and neither here nor there. Bottom line is you win matches.
Mm-hmm. Now, you talked about how important it is for you to be working with that group of like 16 to 19-year-olds right now. Is that because it is a full-time job? In the I guess it's the summer months there. Are you going to be going around and working with that age group and really
so actually
build
step
them up?
one is most of April. That's what I'll be doing, is working around to the States and going to identify up and coming talent, introduce myself to coaches, create those pathways, those bridges. That's the necessary step right now. Lay the foundations. Thanks to the work of the people that are already there, Brendan Garlick of the AVA and all the other states that are doing their development stuff, we've got a pretty good idea of who we're working with. But I think it's too important that we can let anybody fall through a crack. So we got to make sure that we're doing our due diligence to make sure that the athlete identification and the coach development is in place. Those are two of the big foundations for us to be successful beyond 32, not just at 32. So there's already really good things in place. I'm just trying to see, how do I influence the situation to try and make it a little bit better? Mm-hmm. And so that's most of April, and then we'll get into our national team season, getting ready for the AVC Challenger in July.
Yeah, that'll be the big one, because that's that first step of getting back into
VCC, and then VCC back into VNL, and there's some steps that we've got to follow. But again, you just got to win matches.
Yeah, and that Volleyball Challenger Cup is still, you still got teams like Turkey
and it's one match, right? It's like it's win or go home.
Yeah.
So that's we experienced that playing Korea, 5th set in Korea. Like we it's painful aware to us. So yeah, we know.
Do you feel a little bit better equipped having been around there and been around the guys after 1 year? And
I think I have a little bit better idea what I'm walking into. I still think that the challenges that we face are the challenges that we face, and I don't think we're able to solve all of them. But I think as a national team coach, you got to win over. There's 3 wins you got to have, right? You got to win your team room, you got to win your boardroom, and you got to win the community. And I think those 3 wins for me are going to be really, really important. So winning your team room is constant, right? You've got to make sure that you've got the trust of the athletes, and that the big rocks are in place. And I think the board, especially with the VA board, they're very, very involved and very, very engaged, and they want success out of that. So I think it's really important that my communication of my vision to them is very clear, and that they support it, and that it's in line with what they want to see. So I think the Brisbane Olympics set that, that standard, but my vision to it is going to be really important for me to be able to articulate that to them, and then make sure that it's aligned with how they want VA to deliver that. And then the community is what we have to do, right? We want a brand to make sure that the Volleyroos are well known outside of just the AIS and where we train. We got to continue to build that brand and continue to increase the corporate world support behind us, and the Australian fan is fanatical. Like, they love their sports. Mm-hmm. That's the one thing I think I picked up more than anything. Like, I thought as Canadians, you like hockey, and it's awesome. Like, if you're involved in sport and you're involved in Australian sport, it's amazing. Absolutely,
you even
amazing.
Say Australia. Like you,
Australia.
You say it, you're not hinging on that L there. You take it out completely. Add in the Y.
I've had good tutorship on that one. So yeah.
How do you look in green and yellow? That's what I want to know.
I was in blue last year, so that was.
Okay.
I think they're just transitioning me in, but green has been my favorite color. So.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Oh okay.
Yeah.
Well, maybe you can go coach at Trent or something if you ever come back. UFV out on the West
those
Coast.
Programs are well taken care of. They don't need me.
Oh, I mean, I'm sure any program would be happy to take you on. So
I'm hoping to look better in gold than green. So
yeah, well, I guess we'll have to see. I'm so used to seeing you in maroon that it's those dark colors. They fit your complexion well.
Oh,
so
that's just the red coming out of my face.
Even more so when you're a little behind in the match, eh?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, 5-0 to York in the semifinal probably wasn't I got a little bit red there. So.
Okay. Now, will your wife be coming with you to, or
no.
she's there? The family's staying here.
Yeah, right now. So that's a little up in the air as well, because my oldest is at Western studying.
Okay.
She's studying health science there, and my youngest Getting a little shout out to her right now, but she was just accepted to the Toronto School of Dance and Theatre.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and she's really, really jacked about that.
TTDT.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's my partner. She's in the dance world.
Ah.
So she's a dancer.
We're bonding here.
Yeah, there we go.
So yeah, she was just accepted, and
down the street from my house.
Regent Park.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Out
So
in Cabbage Town.
so yeah, she was originally toying with the idea of coming over with me and seeing what was going to happen there, and because there's a couple schools in Melbourne and Adelaide and that had pretty good dance programs. But when she got accepted to this, she's like, I'm doing this. I'm like, yeah, you are.
Yeah.
So so my wife is going to stay local, and try and bridge the gap between the two girls. And at some point on my path, their paths will change as well. But I think as parents, we really want our children to have a foundation, a base, that if, maybe it's not going all that great and you need a little bit of home cooking, it's not in Canberra. It's, so that's going to be a little bit challenging for our family dynamic. We recognize that, but we knew when we were making this decision that it was going to be the case. But Gloria's going to stay. Gabber's going to Toronto School of Dance and Theatre, and Western's got Grace wrapped up in her health science program. So, but I know that our dynamic will continue, even if it is from afar.
And it sounds like it was very much a family decision for you to go.
100%. Yeah, there's no way that this one got made in isolation.
Yeah, I'm sure they're not hating the fact that they get to go visit you in Australia either, too.
It's been mentioned.
Yeah,
Gold Coast for vacation probably wasn't a bad thing.
Yeah, depths of March break next year, depths of reading week, whatever it is, depths of winter here in Canada as it keeps coming down on us. They get to go hang out in Australia in the height of their summer. That's not too bad.
Yeah.
Are we going to see any links between Canadian volleyball and Australian volleyball? Are you going to try to?
I think they're already there.
Yeah.
There's just the NCAA and obviously the U Sports and CCAA are heavily woven into the athlete delivery model there already. Like, we've got a lot of Australian guys that are playing in Canada and NCAA. So I think that's already the case. I'm not going to deny the fact that a lot of coaches have said, "Hey, coach, if you need somebody, you got to come on over. We'll put you to work." It's not a place you go for the weekend, right? It's a little further than that. So. I think no matter where I am, Australia or otherwise, we'll want to leverage some of those relationships that I've made in the past with other NCAA coaches or other Canadian coaches. And, I'm not silly enough to think that I have all the answers. So when you can lean on some of those resources of people that have been there in the past, like a guy like Alan Knipe, when he was down here and with Long Beach, I took him out for dinner and peppered him with questions of, hey, what do I need to know? Tell me what I'm missing here. And he's so gracious with his time. And
he's the guy who's been there too. He's coached at the Olympics, right?
Absolutely.
With Team USA.
So leveraging those relationships is going to be really important for me. And making sure that, we do have athletes from Australia that need to get over here to go to school and continue to develop, that we place them with really great coaches and really great programs. And so...
once again, Grant has already done such a good job.
Absolutely. James Weir.
Paul Sanderson.
Yeah. Calgary with Hamish Hazelden. And
the list goes on of quality Australian players who have come and played. Paul Carroll, who's one of the biggest program players who have come to that program, played down at Pepperdine. It was Pepperdine for years. So
it is part of the development program. It's in their pathway. So I think, along with that, we're going to need a domestic option so that if an athlete chooses not to pursue that route, there's still a route to get to the international level. But I do think that given the circumstances of where they're at, the NCAA and the U Sports model, it is part of that pathway. So we're going to have to make sure we continue that.
Yeah, basically what he's saying is that we're going to see a lot of Australians wearing maroon in the next 5 years or so.
Yeah, it's the international student in Ontario that's a challenge.
Oh,
so.
It is a challenge. I've heard some of it compared to what you've got out west and stuff like that. So
that's the truth.
It's a little difficult. Bring it back here. Is there anyone who you looked up to and that you've relied on throughout your time, like externally, for me, like maybe someone like Brenda Willis, who, you guys had so many great battles against years after years. Is there anyone that you look at within the OUA or within Canada that you look at and be like, this person helped me raise my level, this person helped me, achieve to where I am now?
Yeah, I don't know how much more time you have, but we could go on and on for that one. I think there were a number of people at different stages of my career that filled that role. When I first came in, it was Greg Ryan at Calgary.
Okay. Yeah.
For some reason, I don't know why, but he and I had a relatively decent connection. Maybe he just felt sorry for this young guy who's taken over a program. But Greg and I had a good working relationship, and I benefited tremendously from the exposure that he allowed us to benefit from through the old Dino Cup and other things. And then sticking on Calgary since that time with Rod Durant, he and I have had a really good working relationship where I really benefited from him, spending some time on the golf course with him and just able to pick his brain and seeing he's just so successful. He gets his teams so ready at the right times all the time.
Look at this year.
Exactly. Right. So
no one saw Calgary come in the upset.
I think Rod did.
Yeah.
So, but and then obviously there was other guys that Garth Pischke would be at the top of that list, providing a young up and coming coach an opportunity to work with the Olympic team and benefit from one of the most successful that's ever played and coached in the game. I can't thank Garth enough for the opportunities that he provided me and the opportunity to benefit from his wisdom. Terry Daniluk and I have had really good relationships throughout the years. We got to work at the World Championships together in Argentina, and been able to pick his brain and get out to the Can-Am event that he ran and Benjo, up until the time I took the Australia job, Benjo and I were working with Team Canada together. So we had some really good battles from him, and just the way he thinks about the game and listening to him, it was awesome. We probably came out on the short end of most of those, but I wouldn't say so on the learning side of it. And there's other guys, like when I was coaching Team Ontario, Hernan Humania, just legend. Legend doesn't even scratch the surface for him, and probably told me one of the best coaching pieces of advice I'd ever got is he's in his Hernan way, sometimes you look so serious, right? And I'm like, yeah. He's like, but you have a good sense of humor. You've got to use that to your advantage. I'm like, yeah. He's like, just be you. Just don't try and coach like somebody else. Just be you. I'm like, wow, how prophetic is that? And I think for my younger career, I was maybe trying to do that. Like, you see all these really successful coaches, and I guess that's the way it's got to be done. Mm-hmm. And then at some point realizing I got to do this my way, and you learn to do it. And so I thank Hernan for that.
Hernan has just such an ability when he talks to you, just make you feel like you're the only person in the world in that moment.
Trez Quigley, same way.
Oh, really?
Unbelievable. Yeah. No matter, you could be in a room full of 1,000, and you always felt like you were the most important person in the world to her at that moment. That never gets lost on me. I always have to bring myself back to hey, this is important. Mm-hmm. When an athlete needs your time, they need your time, right? Don't have your head somewhere else when you're trying to coach. Yeah. So
how hard is it that to maintain that? Because I'm sure throughout, not only from season to season, throughout a season, day to day, you go in and out of thinking about a million different things and how to run a program, and how are you able to keep level-headed to remember that continuously? Yeah.
Challenging for sure, especially for me, because I can get so dialed into something. And when an athlete comes to me and I've got my head into whatever I've been doing, I've got to be able to flick the switch right away. and like, okay, and I think I picked this up from Lou Holtz, was WIN, right? What's important now? And when that athlete comes to you or a coach comes to you or something, that's really important to them. And so I've got to be able to flip that switch quickly and then get back to what I was doing. So does it come naturally for me? It's probably easier now. Maybe when I wasn't as experienced, I would have, maybe handled things different. But now, like, if it's important enough for them to connect with you, it's important enough for you to drop what you're doing and connect with them. And so I think that's kind of how I view it. So I think it's easier now. But for an old guy, sometimes you're like, oh, what was I doing? Right? And you got to get back. So there's been a couple times where I'm like, hey, can you just give me a minute? Let me just finish this up, and then we're going to, right? But that minute can't turn into 2. Or you've got to deal with the immediacy of what they want to connect with you. And I find in today's day in athlete, it's even more so.
Yeah, and I bet. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure everyone knows about everyone talks about how kids have changed and athletes have changed, and is that like how aware have you been about that? I'm sure at the beginning of your career
daily.
It was.
Yeah. It's honestly, and everybody says, "Oh, COVID changed people," and I'm like, I don't know if I was a skeptic on that or not, or COVID's changed people.
Oh yeah,
it changed me.
Mm-hmm.
It for sure changed me. So I think about things differently than I used to, right? Like, so yeah, it has changed people. But I think it's really important that we recognize that and that we continue to change, right? We won't always be like this. Will it go back to the way it was? I doubt it. Mm-hmm. Nothing ever has. But how is this good? It won't always be like this. So how do we make it better?
This might be tough, but is there one athlete that you will remember as, like, do you have a favorite athlete?
No.
No, eh? And that's an impossible question to answer, really.
There's different people for different reasons. Because, I'll go back to Paul Durden. I coached him in high school.
Oh, really?
Before he was Paul Durden.
Before he was Paul Durden.
He was
wow.
Oak Ridge Paul Durden, grade 12 middle blocker. And so, yeah, Paul and I still to this day have a tremendous relationship. And I'm really, really thankful for that, because he basically just put his blind faith in me as a young guy. And then he had a whole bunch of other people around him. But, yeah, our careers kind of parallel each other for a little while. So I would say Paul would be up there. I would say, obviously, Steve Marr from McMaster and Danny, that group, from a pure volleyball perspective. Tyler Santoni from a leadership perspective. He came to the U of T match a couple weeks ago, and we got to catch up a little bit. And so there's so many different people for some parish offer. I could go on and go down the list and tell you why every one of the athletes who I've ever coached was important to me, is because they made me better. Right? I had to be a better person to make sure that I was coaching them better. Paul Herkel, Peter Herkel, Brendan Dennis. I could continue on and on and on about the impact that my athletes have had on me and the coaches that I've worked with. But so to try and single out one, they're all just so different, and their relationships resonated with me also differently. Mm-hmm. And I'm thankful for all of them.
Yeah, it's almost like asking a pianist, what's your favorite key on the board? That's not going to happen.
There's been a lot of keys.
Yeah,
30 years of coaching collegiate ball. Right, I was at Western for 9 before I was here.
I always forget about that. I mean, that's way
30
above
years.
Yeah.
I started when I was 24 years old. So that's a long time, man.
When did you make that decision that I want to be a volleyball coach? Like that?
As soon as I was told I couldn't jump. I'm like, I'm too competitive. I can't jump. I could talk, but I couldn't jump. I always knew as a player that my strength was my head. And so I didn't know what that meant, but I thought about the game differently. I just watched the Wilt Chamberlain, it wasn't Wilt Chamberlain. It was the Netflix series on Bill Russell. They were talking about him and Wilt Chamberlain, but they had the Netflix series on Bill Russell. And Bill said he didn't realize how good he was until he started to imagine plays in his head.
Oh.
Right? I'm like, yeah, that's what happens. And that's exactly, listening to him articulate it, I'm like, ding, 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 ding. Right? And so I'm today years old when I realize that.
It's even after 3 years, still learning.
Yeah. So that's been kind of pretty cool. But yeah, I knew as a player, like I was at Western for a cup of coffee and you could say that I played there, but I didn't really play there. I got to wear a uniform and I'm forever grateful for that. And then they hired me as soon as I was graduated out of there. So yeah, that was kind of cool. But Von Peckham was probably the most influential in that part of my life. And quite honestly, one of those guys that has, you look back with the Hernans and Von's close to the top of that list, if not at the top. And the influence he had on me as an athlete and then as a coach. So yeah, that was pretty cool.
Do you have a favorite moment?
As a coach?
Yeah.
I guess because it's so recent, playing in Brazil, first international VNL match.
Wow.
That one will go down.
That's a welcome to the show moment for sure.
Yeah. Didn't really like the result. But because that one was fresh, I think that was definitely something. I think winning OFSA in 1992 with that group, Paul Durden's group, was a pretty cool one because high school volleyball is pretty pure, right? You don't get to recruit.
I love high school volleyball.
Right? You get what you get and you don't get upset. Like that's just how it is.
Yeah. So
there's no recruiting. You just make them better. Yeah. Just make them better. And so winning OFSA in 92 was pretty cool. First OUA championship here was pretty cool. U Sports championships, those Burridge moments, those are pretty cool. So yeah, there's a few of them. Yeah, I've been blessed. I think it's awesome in your career when you can't pick one. I'm very grateful for that. But I've had a career long enough and perceived successful enough that I couldn't pick a favorite.
I mean, hopefully the best is yet to come. Hopefully that's, coaching.
I'm not sure if that was cliche. That was one of the first things that went through my head, but I'm like, I'll tell you in a couple of weeks. But yeah, we'll see. I'm not going to get overcome by that. I do think it's important that these guys understand how to prepare for a championship and challenge for one, but we'll see where that falls.
Have you thought about that moment that no matter what side it falls on, that final whistle, the ball falls, whatever it may be, have you thought about what that final moment is going to feel like?
Yeah, I got asked that in an interview a couple of weeks ago, and it kind of choked me up a little bit. But yeah, I think that word's going to be joy. I do. I think that's what it's going to feel like, win, lose, or otherwise. Obviously, we all hope that it goes the way we would like it to, but. Yeah, I think the joy will be, just looking back on all of this and just going, yeah, you know what? That's why we came here. That's why we came here.
Do you ever just, we've talked about the Burridge so much, but, for me, one of my favorite places is like an empty gym. And luckily I've been able to be in a lot of empty gyms, editing video and interviews and stuff like that late at night. But is that something you ever, as you walk into the Burridge, for your last few weeks here, is that something that you relish every time you walk in there?
Yeah, I got a picture of it on my phone.
Okay.
I came in. I can't remember what it was for. Maybe it was a high school tournament or something, and the lights were off, and there was just a little bit of a faint light from the mezzanine shining in, so you could just kind of see it, and everything was quiet. And I'm like, this is the office. It's a pretty cool office, and thankfully AIS is very similar, and so yeah, I got a new office to go to, but yeah, it is kind of cool. I am a little bit nostalgic that way.
Yeah, I bet. Is that something that you're almost like looking forward to in the future, coming back to it?
I don't know about looking back on, or coming back to anything. We'll be moving forward, but it's, as I say, I'll be leaving the position, but I get to take all those memories with me. I don't have to erase that picture off my phone. I'm good with that, right? So I'll look back on that fondly for sure. Mm-hmm. If my face won't be smiling, my heart will be.
Yeah, that's fair. And I mean, it's so tough to win a national championship, as we know. And it's
not for some.
Not for some. Man, when I remember talking to Benjo last year, right before VNL.
Yeah, he's got it down to a science.
Yeah, and he talked about how excited he was in those how much time you guys spent, potentially like setting it up to be able to work together. And I just think of that possibility of looking at the bench and seeing Benjo and you and possibly Brock all together. I feel like that would have been something special.
I got to tell you, I got to thank him for this too, because just before I took that Australia job, we used to have phone calls on Mondays, and every Monday we'd get on there, and it'd be 6 or 7 of us and of coaches that he had assembled, and they were only scheduled to go for an hour. Right, we were only supposed to have an hour.
There's no way. Oh. There's no way.
There was times where I'd leave here at like 8:30 at night. And I'm like, that was a 4.5 hour phone call, and we would just talk. And we would talk about systems, and we'd talk about, like, it was like we're talking right now. I'm like, man, you can't get enough of this. Like, I couldn't get it. Like, it was unbelievable. And just experiencing, his wisdom and other people on the call of just like, you know what, I've never thought about that way. I do it this way. They talk about it this way. The end game is probably the same, but that language or that approach, or I'm like, man, this is just so exciting. It was really, really cool. So I'll never forget those 1 hour Zoom calls that turned into 3.5, 4 hours.
Oh yeah.
And guys would drop off. They're like, I got to go eat dinner. And then there'd end up being 2 or 3 of us that would just coffee chat like this for hours.
Man, that must have been something special. Just the greatest minds of volleyball, Canadian volleyball, all coming together to build something. It's, I don't want to get into that, but that kind of makes me feel like, oh man, what could have been?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's going to be something special, especially like, from an outsider's perspective, it seems that there's such a big rivalry there, especially, the other person that he goes to is Brock, and everyone knows that the rivalry between Trinity and Alberta. I mean, I remember Benjo talking, it was like the fall of 2011 before they won that national championship at Queen's back in 2012. And he was doing a seminar, and he goes, Alberta's the best team in the country. They've been the best team in the country for X amount of years. So we built our system to beat Alberta. And there was just that, endless respect, but it goes so much past that as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's the beauty of sport, when, you can have that level of competitiveness as well as level of humanization to it, right? We're still, at the end of it, we're still just guys that are doing this to feed our families and raise children, and it's what we do. So, I think that is one of the beauties of sport, is you can be that competitive with somebody and still have that level of respect with somebody.
Yeah. And how lucky do you feel that this is your job, and you're that passionate about, not many people get to say that.
A reporter once said, I'm a philosopher in track pants. So that was kind of,
I think that's an apt description of a coach.
I didn't realize until he said it. I'm like, yeah, that's kind of,
because at the end of the day, there's not much. All you have to give is your ideas.
Yeah.
And your time and your love. And
30 years of coaching, I never scored a point. So you can talk about all the championships they've won, and I got 1 point.
Yeah.
So
we call that point after a timeout a coach's point. But
yeah,
you're not
the
out there
truth
serving
is,
the ball.
yeah, exactly. Right. So I still ain't scored 1 point.
Yeah. Do you think you could have in today's game? Do you think you could at your peak?
I could get one
Yeah, you could get one baseline float serve,
for sure.
wipe off the block.
No problem.
Yeah.
Set or dump.
Set or dump. Are we talking like above the shoulder?
No,
just a straight.
No, the old two-hander.
Oh,
over,
just
yeah.
the
I
two-hander.
can't jump, man. Come on, somehow I got to get out of there. So.
Yeah. Have you ever thought about coaching pro? Was that ever a thing or?
Has it crossed my mind? I've had opportunities presented to me. It just never really fit for me. So, is it on the bucket list? Not right now. I've got my bucket's full right now. Would I later on? I don't know. We'll have to see. But I have a little bit of a issue with the semantics around that, because quite honestly, coaching pro or being a professional coach, right? They're two. I think I've been a professional coach for 30 years.
There's no doubt about that.
So whether you're coaching pro athletes or being a professional coach, that's not really, it's not a differentiator for me, right? Do I want to be a coach as a profession? Yes, I am. And I do it. I treat this job very professionally. Sometimes probably too much so. But I'm really excited about the challenge that I have right now with Australia and opportunities that it's presenting. So I'm not really looking for something else. I like what the project that we're about to jump both feet into.
I've had that conversation with athletes, actually, how they go overseas and they have this idea of what professional volleyball is and being a pro is. And then they get there and they're like, well, the facilities are nowhere near as nice. Yeah. I don't have the support around me in terms of, all of the staff and whatnot. And then my coach is nowhere near as good as my coach. If we had, I'm sure if we had a professional league here in Canada, you'd still be amongst the best of those within the league here. Yeah. But because, we don't have that opportunity, it's that highest level that you can attain is you're at it. So there's no doubt in my mind that.
And I'm very grateful for that. I am. But I think we've treated our program in a professional manner for as long as I've been here. And I think our student athletes understand that. There's just there's an additional level here where we had to layer on an academic component to it.
Are you going to continue following McMaster Volleyball even next year?
100%.
Hop on OUA TV?
Yeah, you can take the boy out of the position, but...
you take the boy out of Burridge, but you can't take the Burridge out of the boy.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, so no, for sure. And I'm looking forward to all the things that these young men and the men that come after them will be able to accomplish.
Do you ever think you're going to get to sit in the stands and watch a McMaster men's volleyball match?
I hope so. That would be pretty cool.
How would that feel?
Yeah.
Have you never? I bet you've never done that. Like obviously women's matches before.
I missed a match during COVID. I had to watch a couple on TV, right?
Okay.
I think we played Guelph, and I had to watch it from. That was not a fun experience for me.
I bet.
Yeah.
That's one where the wife and kids were staying far away from you.
They got out of the house. They're like, we're gonna leave Dad alone here. Yeah, that would be a cool experience. That would be. Hopefully I have that chance, and I'll be able to tell you about it.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and is that one where you're sitting there with the hood up, hoping no one recognizes
you? No way, man.
you?
I'll have those big clappers.
Or are you holding court, right behind the bench?
Vuvuzelas and everything else. Yeah.
Actually, no. You're going to be up. I know you'll be up top in the beer garden up there. That's where you'll be.
Never thought about that.
Yeah.
That's a good point. Up with the rest of our alumni.
Yeah, that's going to be good. I mean, I'm sure they're going to be here in droves. Yeah. I'm sure they'll be coming in from far and wide.
I hope so.
And
I hope so.
I'm sure this national championship will be a special one. If you had one word, not maybe a word, but if you had one thing to tell whoever comes next, which by the way, do you have a little insight on that? Is that within your?
No, I don't think that process even starts until I'm done.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah. So if you have one thing to say to whoever comes next, what would that be?
I think I would probably tell them exactly what I tell our student athletes is just leave it better than you found it. All right, like just leave it better than you found it.
That's gonna be a tall order for whoever comes next.
Yeah, but what does that look like? We can define that in a lot of different ways, but yeah, I just leave it better than you found it. Right? I think that goes with relationships. It goes with the state of the gym when you leave it. Don't leave stuff laying around, and just leave it better than you found it. I think if everybody could adhere to that, I think we'd be in a pretty good spot. So I think that next coach would be just fine.
I'm sure they will, but as you said, building it on the shoulders of giants. Whoever has to come next better not be scared of heights, because they've got to build something on, one of the best to have ever done it.
Thanks, man.
So, and I'm personally sad to see you leave. I'm sad and happy. I'm absolutely ecstatic you're getting the opportunity that you are.
Thanks.
I think you deserve it.
Yeah, I'm not sure what deserve means. I don't like that word, but thanks. I know what you mean.
Yeah.
I use earned all the time.
There we go. That's much better. I think you've earned it.
Yeah.
And I think you earned it maybe it's been a while now that you've done so. But there's going to be a big hole to fill now in Ontario and Canadian volleyball. And I'm excited for whoever gets that opportunity to step in. But it's going to be a large hole.
No.
And
I appreciate that. I think they'll be just fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think there's great coaches who have great intentions and great ideas. Heck, if I can do it, somebody else can too.
Yeah.
So
I'm going to miss, these things, like these chats. I'm going to miss talking to you after matches.
Well, we can do it over the internet.
That, what?
As long as you can handle the 16-hour time change, we're going to be
Hey, you know what? I don't mind staying up a little late, as long as we have a few wiggly pops to get us going. And
by then I'll be talking different. G'day, mate.
Just adopt the full on accent. That would be great. Just to make sure your guys understand you. But
exactly.
I think we're gonna have to, especially this summer. When you're whether you're gearing up for Asian Challenger or VCC, I definitely think I'll have to have you back on just to chat about.
Happy to
chat about.
Again, I'm leaving a position, but I'm not leaving the people.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So, will we ever see you at Madawaska again? That might be a tough one, right?
Yeah, because of the international season schedule, right? It's just so difficult that time of year. So there's so many things going on in August. That's why I had to take such a big hiatus.
Yeah, well, that's same with me. Yeah. I would love to go. I was talking to Dan Pearson Hops.
Oh yeah.
About it actually at the LBSU game here.
Okay.
And he was like, "Yeah, we need to have you back." And I was just like, "Oh man, I'd love to, but that's the North
timing,
Seeker Championships."
Exactly. The timing is just so tough.
Is right
that's
then,
including the beach, right?
Yeah.
With beach and indoor, and no seasons colliding. For you, it's going to be impossible.
Yeah, exactly. This is it's a full-time job that doesn't pay like a job. So
True.
Well, Coach, I don't know what time it is, but I'm sure we're getting close to what time you need to go. Let me check here. Yeah, it's 1:30. It's 1:28. So you said you had between noon and 1:30. So we're coming up there.
We're good, man. As I said, I could do this forever. So.
I know, but hey, I just want to once again thanks for taking the time. Thanks for everything over the years.
Right back at you. Thank you.
I don't know if I'll be able to be there on Saturday for OUAs, just because men's CCAAs are going to be going on at Humber.
Yeah, I talked to Wayne yet.
So unfortunately, I think a national championship.
I hear you.
Supersedes.
Good luck to them too. That's awesome.
Yeah, it should be a good one. I love CCAA ball as a product of CCAA as a player and a coach. I love it, and it's going to be a fun one. But I'll be here the entire time.
Look forward to seeing you here on the 17th.
Yeah.
St. Patty's Day. Make sure you wear your green pants.
Oh, they'll be on. Oh, actually, I'll be here on the 16th too.
Oh, okay.
I'll be here for media day, and we'll have much more of a talk about volleyball chat.
Sounds good.
Next.
Don't be surprised if I'm in game mode.
Oh, that's what I expect.
Hey, you ain't gonna get this.
No, absolutely. This is exactly why I wanted to have this chat beforehand, because we've had a few.
Yeah, you got me on a Monday afternoon just about to walk into debrief. So
yeah, exactly. I think that's
you didn't get me Saturday evening.
No, I've had a few of those, and there's been a few. I remember, especially early on, where like I'd come in and be like, oh man, I can't wait to see Dave. You know, we had such good chats at Madawaska this summer, and then yeah, and I was just like, oh, is he mad at me? Like, did I do something? Did I say something about
Sorry,
him?
man.
But,
I offer everybody an apology the same way, but when I go in, it's just, I just get that death stare, and yeah.
Yeah. Well, hopefully, regardless, maybe we can grab a drink or something on the 19th afterwards, and we'll see how it goes.
One.
Just one. Well,
I'll have a coffee. Thanks, Everett.
thank you so
Be well.
much.
And thanks for the exposure you're giving to our great sport.
No worries.
Love it.
Yeah, it's because of, you say that you do it, but you coach because of the people, and I do it.
Yeah.
It's because of the people. The people that I've gotten to meet, and the experience that I've gotten to have, and the conversations I've been able to have with people like yourself over the years. It's crazy to think that like I've been doing it now for a decade.
We appreciate it. Thank you.
Appreciate you. Well, best of luck this weekend.
Thanks,
best
man.
luck next week.
Be good.
Thanks a lot, guys.
Ciao.